What's up, Warriors, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement Podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I'm your host, Chris. Thank you guys so much for your support these last couple weeks. As I mentioned in my previous podcast, we had added three new countries to the podcast. I am now officially in 29 different countries, so thank you guys again for your support. Today's special guest that we have today, this is third time's a charm on technical issues on my end and a reschedule on my part. So please help me welcome Ron Souers. Ron, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, hey, I'm doing good. And how about you?
Doing better now that we can do this interview.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so when we tried this yesterday, before the journal, before the podcast, what was life like when you first started noticing your ADHD traits?
Yeah, fingers crossed that this works this time, right? Yeah, so before all of that, you know, I actually, I feel like it's really started in the recovery process for me in addiction. Admitting that I was an addict, I had I ended up sleeping, becoming homeless for the second time, and I actually had a job. So I was like sleeping on the National Mall in DC, and it was cold. It was terrible, and I just woke up thinking like this is not how I want to live the rest of my life. And um, so I decided that at that moment that I needed help, and I started my journey towards getting clean and getting off drugs. And it's been almost 6 years today. And it's been along that journey I created a foundation, um where I was working on humility, I was working on acceptance, and I was working on listening, and figuring out how to live life again. And it was difficult. It was very challenging because, I had to pretty much admit that everything that I knew pretty much to that point was not working for me, and figuring out like and just saying, "Hey, look, I've got life to learn." So along that process, I was able to um, you know, through the guidance of my sponsor and like everyone else, the close people in my network. They kept telling me I need to slow down, and I would hear them, but I wasn't really listening. I was just like, more like, they don't understand. They don't know what they're talking about. I've got time to catch up on, all that lost time from addiction. I've got to make that up and go extra fast, and which is not even a thing, but that's how I felt at the time. And what really drove me to figuring that out was like I was about to get fired from the job, that I actually still have today. But um, like I was getting, I was like injuring myself. I was damaging company property and getting called into the office. And these people were just like, you know, um, if you get one more, we're gonna have to walk you out. And, it was like devastating because, I felt like I was a good employee, and this, I was just getting shafted and these things, they didn't get it. But, you know, uh, at the same time, I was like, you know, this is, this is something that I need to look into. And, I went to see my primary care, and I was like, look, I need help. I'm about to get fired. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to slow down. I'm like, what can you do? Like, what can I do? Like, I need help. And she was like, she kind of didn't know, like, where to go with it. And, I was like, my friends were telling me maybe you got ADHD. Sounds a lot like it. And, so I asked her, like, maybe I have ADHD. And she kind of didn't really look convinced, but she still gave me like a list of psychologists and therapists, which I went down. And I was like, I felt like like this freedom, like, wow, like, but I still was like, I need to find somebody right now. So I was like calling all the people on the list just to find, and I finally was able to find the therapist that I actually still see today. And one of the first things when I spoke to him that's really struck out was like, like this can actually be a strength. And I was like, I didn't believe that. I was like, I felt broken. I felt like, oh, I'm one of those. Like, I'm no longer normal, and but there was still some denial, and I was like, I thought I could fix it, so I was like really gung ho on like what he was trying to tell me in the beginning. Like, um, one of the things that, really helped out in the beginning was like, so I would drive really fast and I would wake up late and drive, as late as possible to work. And, one of the things that he said was like, yeah, um, drive like you're going the long way to work. And I was like, I took it literally and I actually went the long way to work. And, that really like helped me to slow down. Like it didn't really, it didn't like necessarily stop it, but it was like my brain like was going like 120 miles an hour or maybe faster. And it was like it got it down to like 100, maybe 90 miles an hour, which is a significant, it may be faster than
Yeah.
most people are going, but it was like a significant like break. And but that just felt like in that beginning stage felt like a mountain that I, couldn't climb. It was like I'm never gonna get better with this because there was still times where I've almost, you know, got like luckily no one saw me or, and I remember one time when I was like I I was backing up this fork truck thing and this power lift and I knocked out a this thing that was holding up a bunch of papers and I was like, "Oh my God, like I'm fired." Like, so and I tried to clean it up. I tried to like put it back together without anybody noticing, but it wasn't working. So I had to like fess up and I was talking to my therapist and he's like, "Yeah, they need you more than you need them." And it really like helped me to just continue the process of slowing down. And at one point I felt like I graduated and I was like, "Yeah, thank you for everything and I'll see you never," like but along the way I ended up getting like a different position at my job which required me to drive a fork truck and um work with dangerous chemical was even closer and there was just I just kept running into stuff like I took out like a reinforcement pole like because for no reason like I there was no reason for me to get on. I was just like distracted and like a bunch of different situations that happened for me to be like, yeah, I need to go back to see my therapist. I was still, very much in contact with my sponsor. So like that whole recovery and looking into your mental health like is so key. Like you can't do one without the other. I've
Right.
at least in my experience because they're so interwoven and it's like one works here and the other one works over here. I need both of them.
Right.
So I was able to, I was finally got to the point where I was about to get fired again. And because I was trying to slow down, I was literally doing everything my therapist was telling me, but everything had added up, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back. So like I was so stressed out and so scared of losing my job again, and I decided to step down from that role and go back to the role that I originally had, which took some humility, and there was a bit of doubt in there, and I was like definitely scared, but more about like what other people would think. And what that helped me to do is like understand like they're not the ones that got to pay my bills. They're not the ones that got to live my life. So I can't afford to care about what they think. And I even had one of the guys, my managers, say, man, like they had so much respect for that decision because they've seen so many people just try to push through it and end up getting fired. So I knew like at that point, I was glad like that if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't have wrote that book. I wouldn't have decided to really dive deep
Mhm.
into my mental health and ADHD in particular, and how that's showing up and why it shows up, because there wasn't a lot of information, and I wanted to bring that, like I wanted it to be there for me, like I wish it was for me,
Mhm.
and it is all there. It's just so scattered, and you really got to dig. So
Right.
I'm like, my journey, my kind of goal right now is to bring all that information and like piece it together,
Mhm.
um, and provide as many sources of, at least affordable to free, um, like tips and tricks for people, and techniques and ways to manage it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Um, First of all, congratulations on your sobriety, man. Whether it's 5 days or 5 years, 6 years is
yeah,
incredible. So, congratulations on the sobriety, man. Um,
yeah, appreciate that.
I think it takes a really big person to admit that they're having, problems with addiction. And, I, growing up in a home full of addicts that took a very long time to be honest with themselves and still to this day don't really hold themselves accountable. I know they say recovery is pretty much for the rest of your life, even though you might not be going to meetings, you might not be talking to your sponsor every minute of every day, but recovery is like the rest of your life kind of thing. And I feel once you start that first mountain and then you keep climbing for higher heights, the journey does get harder, but it's so fulfilling every time you reach a new milestone, right? Um,
Yeah,
and like you said, it takes a lot of humility to be able to step down from a position, whether it was more paying or more responsibility, whatever the case. Um, I think that is a really strong trait in your character, considering like your manager said they've seen people push through and get fired, right? And you
yeah,
saw the writing on the wall and like, hey, maybe I'm too early in my healing journey that this isn't the right fit for me just yet. And I
yeah,
respect that a lot from you because as men, it's hard to admit when we're struggling with shit, right? We push, push, push. And
yeah.
it takes practically burnout for us to stop doing something. And um, healing for me, I've been in therapy 5 years myself, and
It's awesome.
the amount of time and the amount of work that I put into what I'm doing now, to who I've talked to, and meeting people like yourself and hearing similar journeys, man. Um, I love what you're doing, and I love that you're trying or not trying, that you're doing all the things you're doing, especially your podcast, which we'll get to here in a few. Um, but I know the ADHD thing is a really big struggle because my aunt has really high ADHD struggles too. So I
Yeah,
seen that firsthand too. So being able to slow down with that, man, that's a challenge in itself. Never mind healing from the addiction part. So good on you for doing all that, man.
yeah, appreciate that, man.
Of
Yeah,
course.
and the thing is, like with addiction, is like we don't talk about it enough, and it's really not. that person's fault. It goes back to like how they were developed, and a lot of this stuff that I'm learning now is like because I've done that research on ADHD, and I've found this amazing doctor. He's like so gangster to me. He's like Dr. Gabor Mate, and he's like a personal hero of mine because he's he makes the scientific community uncomfortable in the way that he connects like spirituality, emotional trauma and science and backs it and because you can't have like one without the other. They all affect. We're emotional beings, and addiction just comes from a place of like we we lack this regulation, especially like ADHD. We're more like have a propensity to be that because we didn't develop the the neural pathways to actually have the chemicals that we need that provide that pleasure or that relief from pain. So we search that out in drugs, and we're not taught self-regulation and acceptance growing up. So it's like, and it can be extremely difficult for parents as well. And it's something that is continuing to get worse and worse, especially with fentanyl out there and like, they're people that are stuck in this system that's broken, and addiction is a lonely life,
Yeah.
because you feel like, society's looking down on you. You can't talk about what you're doing because all the shame that it's ever brought, and people just don't get that. Like you don't like the emotions that you're dealing with, like are so intense,
Yeah.
and the only relief that you can get is through manufactured relief because your brain was supposed to produce that, but because of the way that you were raised, and it's no one's fault, but it's like that love, that hug, and I've read this quote. It was like I forget who it's from, but it was like heroin was like a mother's hug. So it's like it makes so much sense. They were just searching for that love
Hmm.
and that physical connection. That's why it's so powerful in the rooms, the hugs. I
Yeah.
never realized that before because it's like that's all we really wanted was that touch, that physical, you know, like idea of like we're accepted for who we are and we don't have to hide it anymore.
Yeah, man. I feel like people underestimate the power of human interaction, especially, during the pandemic. I know that broke a lot of people. I mean, that
Oh
pandemic
yeah.
destroyed me mentally. Started therapy was virtual therapy, and prior to this therapist, I had another therapist in New Jersey that was face to face, and you could see their body language. You could tell when they're listening. You can tell when, just
Yeah.
they're trying to give you genuine advice. My therapist is great. I've gotten used to the virtual stuff now, but um, when you're so without human interaction and that human touch for so long, and then all of a sudden you get that hug from someone you haven't seen in months or weeks or whatever, and it's like, damn, I don't want to let go because I miss this,
Yeah.
and it's weird because if I get a hug from a family member opposed to like a friend, it's like two completely different things. I can't explain it, but
Yeah.
it doesn't, it's not the same. Um, but yeah, man, the human interaction is something that we all really need. And I feel that's something that, like you said, addicts are trying to look for that next, that love and that affection, and they're filling it with whatever substance they're putting into their body.
Yeah. And and like you were saying, like we're still recovering from that trauma from the pandemic. And
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is, like, people aren't even aware that they've been through that trauma. They don't even consider it trauma. And I see the difference, and it's just like, especially when I'm trying to date, and some of the reactions, like I actually do some of my interviews, like I call them street interviews, on the spot interviews, like in the on the street, and some people, just you can see like they'll interact, but they don't want to stay there. It's like, and but I get so many great like responses to that because it's like we're missing that. We need that. We need that connection. I feel like every little bit that I can do, and that's why I want to teach men how to do that, like
Yeah.
how to have a conversation with a stranger about real stuff, deep stuff, so that you can find that connection, so that you can stop feeling like you're trapped. Because I know how it's transformed my life. And you're wearing that Comic Con, Tampa Bay. I actually went to the Pittsburgh, the
Nice.
PitCon, and I met Danny Glover there, and that was
Oh,
like
wow.
one of like my first like experiments in like being more social, and like I went to this Comic Con and talking to a lot of people about how they felt about mental health and
Yeah.
ADHD, which is like they probably didn't come there at all to talk about that. So there was
Sure.
some like pretty awkward conversations, but by the end of the day, like I had talked to a lot of different celebrities, I had talked to a lot of different people, and I really got like felt this sense of empowerment. And I
Yeah.
knew at that point that like I was on to something because it was like the depression that I felt was like completely like gone. And it was like, I felt this sense of like confidence and like I said, empowerment,
Hmm.
like that I've never felt before. And I was tired and I was still like trying to talk to people, which was
Hmm.
crazy.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I was like,
It's funny to see how people interact in public because, like, um, sometimes you run into that handful of people, you hold the door open for them, they don't say anything. And years ago, it wasn't like that. Years ago, it's like, oh, thanks for holding up the door. And I don't
yeah,
know. It's so strange to me how people interact in public sometimes because if I'm going grocery shopping, and I've noticed this over the last like couple years, my head is to the ground like almost all the time. Like I'm not
yeah,
looking at people in the eye, and I try to break myself out of that habit. But some people just give you like that weird, like, why are you looking at me, dude? I'm just looking forward. Like I'm not looking at you, you know. But it's yeah, I think doing what you did with Comic Con, I think that's incredible because that's such a great social place, right? And like you
yeah.
said, people may not have been there for that, but you broke that barrier of uncomfortability for not only yourself but those people, and hopefully gave them something to go home and think about. I'm like, damn, maybe that guy's social interaction changed my life. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, that one conversation that you have, that one hi, how are you to that one random ass person, or
Yeah.
even just a smile could change their whole freaking life and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I always say, smile to strangers. I know it sounds goofy, but smile, just smile and
Yeah.
how are you, or
Smile.
just nod, you know?
Yeah. Smile and make that eye contact,
Right.
and especially as neurodivergence, where like we're afraid or we like, I've noticed like, in my interactions with and my limited experience with autism that's something that's difficult for them, because they get a lot of overstimulation and it's like that's why I don't necessarily particularly work with autism, but not that I wouldn't, but it's like I don't know as much about that. Like
Right.
I'm not specialized in that particular field. I would love
Mm-hmm.
to know everything about the human brain, but like I I wouldn't be as 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 deep
Yeah.
if I was going in all these different directions. So
Right.
I just and that's what I've noticed about me is like I have so many different amazing ideas that could be like I could work on every single one of them
Mm-hmm.
and they'd probably be all great, but it's like I'm only one person and like
Right.
I've got to be able, to like either put that away or just prioritize. And that's what I've learned to do better is like, okay, this is a priority.
Hmm.
Not that I haven't, I probably do need somebody who's like more of like an assistant that's here like saying, "Hey, look, you're going off the rails, Ron. Like
Right.
you've got all this
Someone
right
keep
here.
you
You
grounded.
sure you want to like go down that route?"
Right.
So because it's okay to just focus on one thing.
Yeah.
It can be difficult with the follow through when you have ADHD because that's one thing about us is like, we always want to like look for the new shiny thing and we'll be all into it for like a couple weeks or a couple days and then it's
And then
over.
jump to something else. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I think when people talk about mental health, it's such a tricky thing because there's so many different things to learn about the brain, right? And there's so many disorders and so
Yeah.
many different things that it's like you want to broaden your horizons in the mental health community, but it's like, damn, I know what I know about myself and the community that I support, but I want to be for mental health. Like a podcast I just did before yours a couple hours ago, actually, was a doctor. And,
Yeah.
he didn't really understand like the layout of how I did podcasts at first because I'm like, oh, just I do my research on my guests and write a couple questions, talk about your platform and your story, etc. And he's like, well, if you want to talk about mental health, I mean, that's a pretty it's a pretty broad subject.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's just just generalized. It's nothing specific. But anyway, I'm going off the rails here myself. I apologize. Um,
No worries.
but
That's what we
yeah,
do.
I think it's always we're learning every day. We learn about each other. We learn that sometimes computers break in the middle of an interview. That's always fun. Um, uh, we learn a lot about each other, especially through these conversations like this, man. And want to dive a little bit more into your journey here. You had mentioned that you wrote a journal called the Self Discovery Journal for Adults with ADHD. Um, what was the turning point that led you to create that journal?
Yeah, it was money. No, just kidding. No, I mean like if I was to say money wasn't like a driving factor in it,
Sure.
like that would be a lie. Anybody that really wants to be, you know, um, anything like in life, you have to do it for money. Like especially if you want to like live the life that's, you know, not what you envisioned it.
Hmm.
Live the life that like is a dream. Like one of my dreams is to travel the world and to be able to help people doing that. And I believe that I can do that with, the right mindset. So with, and I kind of went off on a tangent there
Oh,
too,
it's
but
okay.
like, um, the thing is like that journal was particularly, something that I was starting to study more, um, because I talk about my depression, but like when it comes to like emotional, like and it was with this book that I was reading. It's called and I'm still reading it. It's called Heal, Feel, and Let That Shit Go by Rachel Kaplan. I definitely recommend that. It kind of starts out a little weird, but it's like once you can get past kind of that part, um, it's really been effective in my life. And it's about that exploration of um who you are and with mindfulness as well as um, like one of the things that really helped me was like and this is an exercise in the book is talking to my mom about, how I was raised, how she was raised, how she raised me, and how my dad grew up and, kind of how her parents were, raised as well. So that opens up a lot of like, that was like a huge puzzle piece for me that fit right in and like understanding like why my relationship with my dad was the way that it was. Um, because like he grew up in a, very abusive household. and there wasn't a lot of it was just you tried your best to not get abused, and there was no like emotional, or hugging or any type of um you know like comfort that a child really needs. So for him to raise me the way that he did was an incredible step forward for him. Like he did the best that he could with what he had, that broken childhood, that he's still continuing, still continues to have trauma from that because he, you know, doesn't explore that, so I was able to, like see the trauma that did happen to me because trauma doesn't always show up as like somebody dying or somebody getting abused or, some, whatever that may look like. Trauma can be something like neglect.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, like I didn't see it as abuse or trauma. Like I just thought it was just normal, which
Mhm.
it kind of was, but that doesn't mean that it didn't have an effect because like as children, we're incredibly intuitive when it comes to what we need. And when we don't get those needs, because it's like how our brain develops, so like and don't get me wrong, like I love my dad, like and I still try to connect with him, and I've even had like a connection with him recently that we've talked, because it would be like I probably hadn't talked to him on the phone in like a couple years. So and I was talking to my mom, like I could only text him and it would just be very short and vague, around my birthday or Christmas or something like that. And I don't want to like I get it and I want to give him space, but I don't want it to like like that to be it. He's still my dad.
Right.
Like I want to maybe be able to help him, at some point. So I was telling my mom about it and she was like, maybe you should text him and say, look, it would be nice to hear from you. So like I did that, and I was like, I put a little emoji, like smiley, like it would be nice to hear from you, not to just make him feel guilty, but like it actually would be.
Mhm.
And he ended up calling me, and we talked for like a couple hours, so it was very significant,
Yeah.
and I had to listen too because there's a part of me that was like scared that he would just ignore it.
Mhm.
Another like olive branch just swatted away.
Right.
And I still, even in that conversation, like I was able to see like much more commonalities because of the work that I was doing on myself and the
Mhm.
understanding of like where he's at.
Mhm.
And he was like, and I still had to resist the urge to be like, well, let me ask you about how you grew up. Like, because I want to know that story. And I believe that, he there's something there for me and there's something there for him in the telling of that story. But I knew it wasn't the time yet,
Yeah.
so like I've got to foster that and develop that and like wait for the opportunity for that to potentially happen if it's
Mhm.
going to happen,
Yeah.
because like we've got to be able to step through and have those conversations. And if I wasn't working on myself on a pro-social level and doing all that, like that journal would have never come into existence. So it's
Yeah.
like full of prompts that I actually have it right here. So it's the self-discovery journal for adults with ADHD, and I'll just read one of the prompts. So why does criticism from certain people hit harder than others? So it's
Mm.
something that you like kind of think about,
Yeah.
like, because I've actually explored that, and like,
Mhm.
especially if I get yelled at, it kind of what I've been able to get from that is like, sitting in that emotion and you know exploring it, like being okay. And that's part of that book too, is like
Mhm.
it's okay to have fear. It's okay to have sadness. It's okay to be angry,
Yeah.
as long as we are healthy in those moments where we allow ourselves to feel that, because those emotions have to come through.
Hmm.
So it was like I understood that when somebody yells at me, it brings me back to how my dad never approved me, never had
Right.
the approval of me that I searched so much for. And it was just that brings me right back to that moment. So it was like, wow, I was able
Yeah.
to separate that the power that that had. Not that it's okay that people should yell at me,
Sure.
but it's like I shouldn't have that visceral of a
Hmm.
reaction to it,
Yeah.
where it's like I'm feeling down about myself. It's bringing me fear, anger, um, sadness. And that's one of the emotions that has been like the most difficult for me
Yeah.
is exploring the sadness
Right.
because
And
I feel like
sometimes those triggers are really hard to navigate, you know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
yeah, you're good.
But, what's crazy is like, listening to your testament about your parents is I can relate in almost every sense of what you said. Uh,
Yeah,
I haven't seen my mom in 3 years. I talk to her here and there. I keep her at a very, very far arm's distance because we just don't have a great relationship. And it's funny because like my dad and I, he grew up just not really expressing emotion either, and
yeah,
he's around my mom and uh, like listening to how you were describing your story, I'm like, damn, like I feel every piece of that, man, because when you're trying to make that connection, you're trying to hold that relationship together, and it's literally just you are
yeah,
doing most of the effort, if not all of it. um, I'm at the point in my journey where I've accepted both my parents are not going to change, um, but at the same time, not give up on either one of them as because at the end of the day, like you said, they're your parents. It's your dad, it's your mom.
yeah,
Um, and I think a lot of people, especially our age, really struggle talking about our parental relationships, especially if we grew up in a broken home. Um, I my parents got divorced when I was a very young age. I think it was like 8 years old when they did, and
wow,
navigating that through my teenage years, thinking it was my fault they got divorced, and
yeah,
them playing tug of war over us three kids was a nightmare. Um, and
yeah,
that everlasting effect, like you said, why criticism hits harder from certain people than others. Like I said whenever I first started responding was triggers are very hard to navigate sometimes, no matter what you do in your healing journey. Because sometimes there's a landmine just waiting for you to step on it.
yeah,
And like you said, you're still discovering sadness and you're still discovering why certain people, when they yell at you or when they talk to you a certain way, it sets off a whole string of emotions. So I could totally relate in almost pretty much everything you said there.
Well, I appreciate that, and I definitely appreciate your vulnerability as well, because it's, this is why we need to have these conversations, because
Absolutely.
it's so common.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially because like I truly believe that the system that we're in is broken. It's
Yeah.
not us. It's the system that everyone's trying to conform to that we're so afraid to speak up about or speak up against because, you might get in trouble or, you might lose some friends. You might, catch some backlash or you might lose a job. Like those are very real consequences, but they're actually, that might be the best thing for you because like the system needs to change. It's continue like I believe that the system is causing a lot of these issues, especially with addiction. And scientists and doctors and politicians aren't trying to listen to that. They're just trying to come up with band-aids,
Yep.
or they don't want to admit that they were part of the problem. That they funded this or they tried to fix that because it just was easier.
Yeah.
Okay, that's most people already know that.
Mm-hmm.
Most people aren't as dumb as you or as naive
Yeah.
as you would like them to be. Yeah, there's a lot of psychological manipulation involved, and the thing is, both they can be used both for good and bad.
Hmm.
So like one of my latest episodes was like about, propaganda and um, kind of I forget like it was Sigmund no, yeah, I think Sigmund Freud's nephew was like the author of the book. Edward Bernays, yeah, he was wrote the book Propaganda and talking about, you know, that it's just a small group of invisible people that actually control what everybody desires. And but there's another side to that. It's like we need businesses. There are certain businesses that could really benefit from that propaganda
Oh yeah,
that are going to help, that should use it, but because they feel like they're morally obligated to to follow this set of rules that no one's really following. It's like sometimes you have to go to war with the weapons that will win it, because if you don't, there's going to be nothing left to fight for, to live for. So there's certain times where you've got to stand up and risk your life, or risk, looking like, an outcast,
yeah,
because that's what society needs. They need somebody to step up,
100%.
to save them from themselves.
Yeah,
And some people aren't gonna, there's it's just injustice versus justice. Like that's all it is. That's that's where the line has been severely blurred. And that's what I'm saying. Like neurodivergent people are so sensitive and so amazingly capable and resilient to fight that battle. That's why I believe that all this information is so scattered, because
yeah.
they don't want us to like for me, I feel like having ADHD, it's like I want the world to be jealous that they don't have it. I feel like I'm privileged that I have a gift that God gave me, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
It's a superpower, man. It really
Yeah.
is. Yeah, and as traumatic as the shit as I went through, I kind of look at it as a superpower as well, because to have a voice, and the title of my podcast is simply for that, for giving people like you and I and many
Yeah.
others that voice that so many try to take away from us. We are the outcasts. We are leaders in our community, and you know it's so much easier to follow a trend than it is to lead your own movement. And
Yeah.
in so many different instances in life, sometimes following is the safest thing to do in certain situations. And there's nothing wrong with following sometimes. But there comes a time, like you said, where the lines are blurred, that you need to lead and that you need to start that movement of leading the different direction. Because, like you said, the system is broken. The people that are benefiting from it are the people that are just trying to make money. And let's be 100% honest here. Money makes the world go round. It's
Yeah.
unavoidable, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
money is also a very evil thing. you know, um, it makes some of the most genuine people turn into the most evil people, unfortunately.
Well,
You
I
know,
think that, money is just a tool.
yeah.
It's really the person, behind the money, because like, honestly, it depends on your motives. Like
Mhm.
if you're getting rich just to get rich, that's really like one of the worst reasons to get rich. But
Right,
if you're getting rich to like have generational wealth, to to pass on to your children, to be able to live a better life, to be able to donate to charities or be able to support a cause, then by all means,
right,
get as rich as you can.
right.
But if you're just getting rich to buy things and that aren't going to help anybody, and it's just going to continue to take away, like that's, but like I always believe that, and hold out that hope for people, no matter who they are, no matter where they're at on the spectrum, because like if somebody gave up hope on me, I wouldn't be here, because like I've always got to think back to like I am an addict. Like I can easily just put everything that I've worked in, into rolled up into a blunt and smoke it all away. And all that hard work maybe I could get it back, but that's a big risk
Yeah.
that I'm not willing to take. And that's why I continue to remind myself and talk about it because like I don't want to forget how
Yeah.
it felt, how it felt to lose everything, to lose the trust and the people that love me the
Hmm.
most and how much I hurt myself and other people, along the way just because I didn't understand it. Now that I get it, it probably like I know it wouldn't even have an effect. Like
Right.
I get so much more joy from like having conversations like this than I ever did getting high.
Right.
Like it's so profound. Like I would if it like the day I got clean or like got it, it was just my world was upside down. And if you told me this would have been something that I would even have pursued, like I would, it would, I would probably laugh in your face and like,
Yeah.
just, you're like, that's crazy, not
Right.
me.
And it's funny because last night when I was looking at my podcast episodes that were coming out, I saw that I hit the 29th country, and I made
That's
a post
awesome.
about it. And thank you, man. Um, and I made a post in my Facebook in our Facebook group, the mental health group that I have, and I said, younger me would have probably downplayed it. I would have probably been like, oh well, it's not 100, it's not 50. Who gives a
Yeah.
shit? And much like yourself, 10, 15 years ago, if you would have told me that any of this would have been a possibility, I would have probably been like, yeah, whatever. I mean, it's just a podcast. Who gives a shit? And now that I could reflect on that version of me was because I didn't care about taking care of my mental well-being. I didn't care about numbing myself in the jobs that I was in. And
Yeah.
when you reach that level of mental clarity, man, it's so damn freeing because this is so fulfilling to me. Just everything that we do, people like yourself and people like myself and what we do, it's so fulfilling and freeing to not only meet like-minded people, but just hearing the different causes that people are fighting for. Like when you hear when you talk to CEOs that are helping the homeless that are like millionaires, it's like, holy shit, you're helping homeless people? What?
Yeah.
You're a millionaire. Why are you doing that? You know what I mean? And it's just it's crazy how our younger selves or our unhealthy versions of ourselves would have downplayed this so hard.
Yeah. Because that's all we knew.
Right.
And that's all our parents knew to teach us. It's like, it's a generational trauma
Yeah.
that we're dealing with past, like created by the society that we're living in. And capitalism and it's all based on secrets and greed and power. And it's not like I like, yeah, it's wrong and yeah, it needs to change, but I get it. It's like it's the system. I can't
Mm-hmm.
blame the people in the system for, trying to take advantage of it or thinking that they're just searching for happiness. They
Yeah.
think happiness is in that Ferrari or that, being a president or whatever. One of the things that like I had to go through myself was like when I got clean, like I didn't even know I like gold watches and all types of hoodies and hats and getting my Jordans and like because I've never had those before and I
Right.
was like got the gold chains, but once and I thought once I got those things people would notice me, the people, you know like my life would change, but it never did.
Yeah.
There was a little bit was like maybe I need to get more chain, diamond one, but it was like no, none of that stuff like is as important as like what's inside, what you
Yeah.
already have.
Right.
And the people that even if that did attract somebody, it wouldn't be somebody that I would want to keep in my life.
Right.
That's all they saw in me. Like I want people that like me for who I am, no matter what I'm dressed like.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope they would like care about how I smell and how I'm like presenting myself, but like on the core level, like they would help even in that situation because they'd be like they know who I am
Right.
when I'm when I'm good,
Yeah.
So they'd be like, what can we do
Hmm.
to get you better? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? What can we talk about? Like that's what I want to cultivate. That's what I want to have in my life is better quality people, and I've got to become a better quality person to 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 get that.
Right. Yeah. I want to talk about your podcast a little bit here, and the title of it. Remind me again what the title of the podcast is. I think I have it right, but I just want to make sure. Don't mind me. I just have ADHD.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank
Just
God.
have ADHD. Don't mind me.
um, so I love the title of it because it's just unapologetic, and it's just one of those things where it's right in your face, right? You know what you're getting right off the bat. What's
Yeah.
one episode that surprised you either emotionally or in how listeners responded?
I would say like I don't know. There's a couple episodes, like at least when it comes to like ha the response that it's
Hmm.
gotten, and one was like the ADHD and like how exercise is like a magic like bullet or like a magic potion or something. I forget what the name title, but it was like really they like that one, like like. You'd think like people with ADHD wouldn't want to know how to like exit like that would just be something that but I guess maybe it just appealed to people that didn't have ADHD as well. And
Hmm.
the other one was like ADHD and remote work. That one like skyrocketed for some,
Mm.
it was like the survival guide, and it was just basically kind of talking about like how, to navigate like having your own business or working remotely for another company and how to stay productive during that and mainly how to like go with the follow through because I feel like we have great ideas and we really start strong, but it's like once the things start to like lose their newness and that shiny the shine wears off, we're like I can't do this. This is too
Yeah.
hard. Or we get those rejections and like it's like what I really believe is like you got to push through. No matter how hard it gets. Like if you really believe in what you're doing to your core that it's the right thing, just do it till the wheels fall off because it's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
Like I 100% believe that. And it's those people that give up that never see that,
Right.
all of us have like this amazing, like special thing that makes us who we are that nobody else has. And when you can figure that out and give it to the world, like the world will be a better place because of it and you're worth it.
Yeah.
Like, especially with ADHD, there's like that self-doubt from and you got to not only overcome your own self-doubt, but the self-doubt that's been indoctrinated in you for decades by
Yeah.
your family, by yourself, by the school, by the system. So it's like it is like anybody just living with ADHD and
Hmm.
surviving, you are incredibly resilient.
Yeah.
And like, whether you believe it or not, just living life and showing up, like that takes an incredible amount of energy and resilience that, you should be recognized for a
Right.
lot more often.
Yeah. And do you release how do you release your podcast? Is it weekly? Is it bi-weekly?
It's weekly.
Yeah. How often do you do the street interviews?
I do them, it really depends like on my schedule because
Mhm.
I really like to go out once a week for my own personal because I like to, practice what I preach and live by example and really just kind of push the boundaries of like because my mind will be like you can't talk to that person like, you know, they're in that situation or and so many times that has been false like what I'm telling the doubts that are coming up like you can't do that like like I would say I try to do it once a week, but it really depends on like, okay, do I have time for that? Is this gonna really fit in there? M more often it'll happen, or if I'm doing like I have a guest on, obviously I'm not gonna do some
Right,
street
right.
interviews on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this p past weekend, like I was like the interview that I got was like 15 to 18 minutes long. And it was like they were behind me. And I overheard the guy talking about like, oh, I have friends with ADHD. And I was like, I've got to talk to that guy. Like, but it was like in my head, like you can't approach somebody when they're behind you. That's
Right.
weird.
Yeah.
They're not gonna, but it's not true. Like I prove maybe it may not work, but like if you're curious enough and you got the drive to do it, like yeah, anything's possible,
So when
so.
you do your street interviews, do you have like an idea of what you want to talk about when you go out? Is it different every time, or is it the same premise every time you go out?
Yeah, I used to go out with like, just an opener and like then I would wing the questions. Um, but now I have more like because the interview like the podcast is following a certain, you know, arc.
Hmm.
And, I wanted to follow the like what's going on in there as close as possible. So I get questions that align, I actually bring out a book of questions. But yeah, like and one of my, openers is like to get them to stop is like, hey, can I ask you a quick question? Like, I was like, what was like the best part of your day? And that one's like a really good one because it's like, um, it usually gives like a smile because they're thinking about the best part, or, um, it's generally like,
It's a good one.
yeah, yeah, that one's like my go-to one,
It's a good opener.
if I don't have like anything else, you know.
When did you start doing that right away when you started the podcast, or how long did you wait to start doing that?
Um, yeah, it wasn't too long. It was probably like probably like the fourth episode, I think. Yeah, it
Hmm.
was like the Christmas one. Cause like went out to the mall and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to give him like gift cards and to make him stop and like, I had all this like, and I was like, no, people either want to do it or they don't.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, I'll have guys that will be like, maybe later, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be here later.
Right.
Like, I'm not gonna be.
Let me just schedule. Hold on. Go take my lunch
Or they'll
break.
be like, yeah, let me give you my number and I'll schedule it. And I'm like, no, I'm talking about right
No.
now. Like like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That's all you
Yeah.
got. Like whatever you got. If you don't, that's cool. I don't want you to feel like the thing is like I don't want you to feel obligated because it's just not gonna be a good interview.
Hmm.
Like I want you to feel comfortable doing it. And sometimes I like if they don't want the video on, I'll just record the audio. I'm very respectful of, how people are, especially when it comes to like the approach. Of course, I've had guys, that were like, not very often, but they'll be like, "Can I ask you a quick question?" And they'll be like, "No." Honestly, like that's more funny to me
Yeah, yeah.
than anything else because it's just like really,
No.
yeah. I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm not even gonna ask why, like, because
Yeah.
that's another question.
Um,
That's actually a question.
so speaking of questions, what's a question you wish more people ask themselves during their healing journey?
Um, yeah, that's a good one. You know, um, I would say just like being okay, like really just like asking yourself if it's okay. to make this mistake, or if it's okay to not do certain things, you know, really just being curious, I feel, is
Yeah.
like, exploring it, like that childlike curiosity, like about everything,
Hmm.
and that's really what helped me, like that curiosity of like want to know what that person has that I can learn from, just learn from yourself. Like,
Yeah.
what questions can you ask about, like, why are you feeling, instead of distracting yourself from being depressed or trying to ignore it, which is never going to work. It's just going to get worse, or it's just going to come back. It's not going anywhere. It's going to follow you around.
Yeah.
But if you're able to like just question it and be like, so, being okay and sitting in it, like, I'm depressed now. This is happening, and that's part of who I am, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then just being like, so where's this coming from? Like, why am I depressed?
Yeah.
And not necessarily trying to fix it, but just exploring it with acceptance and kindness. I feel like that's one question I ask myself often is like, what's the rush?
Yeah. Damn.
What is the rush?
Damn. That's a good one.
Yeah, that one, it's like, okay, you're right. You're right, guy. Like,
What's the rush? I like that a lot because, and I'll tell you why that one hits me a little harder than I'll make my point to the other answer that you had too. But I always say to my brother, ever since the pandemic, it seems like there's been a time warp. Like everything is just going too fast, right?
yeah,
Um, as human beings, I feel it's just so easy to just walk past things and not acknowledge the things that are going on around you. We're usually like this most of the time when we're in public, right? We're not like this. We're not paying attention to what everybody's doing.
yeah,
Um, and what's the rush? If I'm out to dinner with somebody and we're just talking, like, oh, are you ready to go? No, I don't want to go. What's the rush? What's
yeah,
the rush? And I really like that one a lot, because and to the first point on your answer that you made, asking questions and learning something every day, I feel is just so important. If you're not learning something, at least one thing, it doesn't matter if it's a giant thing, it doesn't matter if it's a small thing, you're still learning.
yeah,
Learning something new every day can create just such a wondrous amount of possibilities for you that you just don't understand right away. And
yeah,
I feel when you live your life learning every day and asking questions to your therapist, asking questions to your doctor, to your peers, whatever it is, stay curious all the time. The minute you stop asking questions,
yeah.
that's when life just passes you by. And so many of us take this life for granted.
Yeah, it's about asking better questions. Like, just plain and simple. This life is, it's not always about the answer.
Right.
Sometimes, like, especially when it comes to trauma, you got to think like, you know, um, like a lot of this stuff happened when we were very little, or small kids, that, and what goes on in a kid's brain that's like,
Right.
that makes sense. We're just trying to make sense of a world that doesn't make any sense at all to
Right.
us. So it's like, maybe there's not a reason
Mhm.
that you feel that way, but you do feel that way. And one of the things that's kind of like a little gross, like, or a little, kind of, I don't know. It's kind of just, I don't know if there's a better way to put it, but it's like, this is what Rachel Kaplan often says, is like, if you got to take a if you got to take a shit, you don't sit there and like say, "Hey, like, let me explore why I'm doing that." Like, where's this coming from? Like, no, you just take a shit. The same thing with shame or any other emotions. You
Right.
just go.
Just
You
go.
don't, you might explore it a little bit, but like,
Oh,
you got to let it go.
you
Like,
gotta let it go.
you don't just sit there and be like, "Hey, wonder why this is happening." No, it's happening. Like, let's get it through. They're emotions. They're part of who we are, and we need to start talking about them more.
Holy shit,
Because
dude.
like what was interesting was like I was actually in I'm the leader of the mental health committee at my work, which has been, a labor of love. And I actually had, the plant manager and, HR was in there and like, some really higher up people in the company. And, we ended up talking about emotions, tough emotions that they're dealing with on a daily basis. And it was huge. Like I feel like, and I was able, because me and the plant manager have been like, I've tried to float an idea from the mental health committee to him to try to get more mental health supervisor training. And, that didn't go anywhere because he just didn't feel, he felt like they already have something like that. And that's not, something like that isn't that.
Right.
Like, so I was like, there's a little bit of friction there. So he was there. And so I kind of landed something with him, because I'm looking at it from the long game and like just planting seeds and bringing up things subtly. And like, yeah, they were talking about, how they, in a relationship at their house, like how the partner shows up and how they communicate emotions to one another. And so they were going through that, and there was like a lot of good sharing going on. And it came to me, and I'm not in a relationship, so I was like, yeah, this is what I do, and this is kind of like it's all on me. And I talked about taking a bubble bath, and sometimes I just got to give myself that 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 extra comfort, take care of myself, pamper myself, and allow myself to feel that way, and love myself through it, because I'm just gonna be better on the other side.
Yeah.
And I took the opportunity to be like, yeah, and notice like the people that you're close to, you can't tell where they're at emotionally until they say something, and you're right there. Imagine how people show up for work, how much more of a benefit that would be if we were open enough, like here, to talk about those emotions and
Yeah.
so it was like, a little bit of,
Yeah.
just like, and I felt
That's
like,
huge.
yeah, and if I hadn't had those conversations and talked to people, I
Hmm.
couldn't have had the, the articulation to be able to, and you're talking about a guy that just was not talking, was scared to speak up because like, that's the way I was taught, and I didn't want to get fired. And I don't, you come to work and you just come to work and that's it. You don't talk about anything else. You don't talk about your ADHD. And I'm sitting in there leading a mental health committee and landing something, that I don't know if it, I'm sure it planted a seed. And that's where I'm at now. Is like when they're on the fence or they're against it, like I get it. It's hard to make a change.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do in that is just keep planting seeds like a
Yeah.
farmer, and just like the seeds will do their work. I don't have to do anything else. Like say, did that grow? Did that connect? You
Hmm.
tracking me? Like, nope. I'm just gonna put it out there. Hopefully it landed,
Yeah.
you know?
So for me, when my brother passed away in 2021, after he passed away
Oh,
and
I'm sorry to
after
hear
I
that, man.
thank you, man, I appreciate it. It's hard to believe it's been 4 years. It's
That's crazy.
grief is a really tricky thing to navigate,
Yes.
especially when you're in therapy, right? Because we're not taught how to grieve. We don't know what grief looks like, and
Yeah.
this is gonna sound batshit crazy, but you know who taught me grief? Robot Chicken taught me grief.
Wow.
There's an episode of Robot Chicken where a giraffe falls into quicksand, and
Amazing.
it goes through the 5 stages of grief, every single one. And by the end of the episode, he's like, acceptance. Okay, I'm ready to go. I'm done fighting. Just take me away. And his feet hit the bottom of the quicksand pit, and it's a hilarious twist to it. But that's what taught me grief was
Yeah.
a quick little, however long clip in high school in psychology. And that was over 15 years ago. And
Yeah.
when my brother passed away, I was a mess. I didn't sleep probably for about three
Yeah.
months.
Wow.
Just flashbacks of hearing the her store shut and stuff. Anyway, um, after that, and after many months of therapy, I was able to talk about it at work, and that led to one thing, and then it led to talking about my second suicide attempt when I was 27. Um, I got to do an interview for my job talking about suicide prevention awareness. And then I shared it with my managers. Now my managers open up to me and we have that conversation. When we start that one conversation, man, just like you did, when we have that one conversation, you see how much of a difference we're making. It's so damn powerful.
Yeah.
Everything, every conversation you're having in that office room with your managers, and every interview that I've done and have shared with my managers, it's the most gratifying and fulfilling thing because I'm like, damn, we're making a difference, man. And it's so hard to
Yeah.
celebrate those wins, but we're making a damn difference.
No, definitely. Like I could feel it. Like it definitely was intimidating because like that was the first time that they showed up as like, and it was pretty much just me.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh no, I was just like, just lead like Nelson Mandela and just, be the last one. If they want you to speak, speak, but I'm gonna let them dictate the flow of it. Like I already have like my partner in crime is the other HR, and we go over it, and I was like proud of her because she really did her part. It made my job easier, which is just to facilitate.
yeah,
All I had to do was just keep my mouth shut and open it up for the opportunities. But of course in my head is like this is an opportunity to really just like go in and like say what you say. And sometimes like the best thing you can do is just look for the opportunity
yeah.
and wait.
Let it flow. Let
Yeah,
it flow.
because it'll come.
Yeah. So I asked a variety, various different ways this question, but I'll ask you in this way for your journey specifically. If you could speak directly to someone newly diagnosed with ADHD, what would you say to them in the most vulnerable moment?
Yeah, I would just say just be okay with who you are. Like you're not broken. I know that you may not believe that right now, and you know it's okay. And all you got to do is believe that I believe that, and that this will get better. And if you really want, like, it's not going to be easy, but life's not easy for anybody.
Yeah,
It's just keep trying. Like you're worth it. You are more than worth it. Like you like are a gift to the world, really. I mean, everyone is, but like I feel like because we're so sensitive, like that really helps us with relationships once
hmm
we're able to, develop the tools to harness that type of, like overwhelm or whatever that is,
yeah.
So yeah.
Couldn't agree more, man. It's powerful. So before we close out the podcast with our quote, where can our listeners find you on socials?
Yeah, that's definitely a good question. Yeah, definitely. I thank you for sharing this space with me. I'm, completely flattered, and third time was the charm. So if you'd like to continue the journey, I invite you into my world through my podcast. Don't mind me, I just have ADHD. It's where I explore not just the struggles, but the hidden strengths and untapped potential that come with a different kind of brain in the workplace. And for those who appreciate powerful tools, I've curated a self-discovery journal. It's going to be the same one we talked about, but the electronic version. It's a complimentary resource you can access at youradhdguy.com. It's right at the top. It's not just a journal, but a mirror, a way to clarify your vision, reset your compass, and reconnect with who you truly are. And for the individual who refuses to settle for surface level change, I offer the Connection Blueprint, a brilliant 6 session private hands on coaching immersion for men over 40. It's designed to dissolve isolation, ignite confidence, and elevate the way you create and sustain meaningful connections. It's not about tips and tricks, it's about rewiring the way you move through the world. It's like nothing you've ever experienced before. So, wherever you begin the podcast, the journal, or the coaching experience, I'd be honored to walk alongside you as you step into the next chapter of your life.
And are you on Instagram or Facebook by chance?
Yeah, I'm on like all of them, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn.
Perfect.
So you can find that at like Ronald Souers on most of them. I would say YouTube, LinkedIn, and um, wow, Instagram. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Facebook,
Perfect.
and then LinkedIn's like, TikTok is at ron.solo1, and Instagram's like RonnyReel,
Okay.
REEL.
Got it. So before I read my quote to close out the podcast, do you have any closing words you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, just this is something that, I often say. I don't really have like I have like a whole bunch of Gabor mods, but I don't have it with me, so I'm just gonna use the one that I normally use, and that's um so if you can't ask for what you need, you'll never get what you truly want.
I love that. That's a good one. Yeah, because I mean, if you're not asking for help or if you're not telling people you're struggling, nobody's ever going to know.
Yeah.
And we obviously encourage each other's voices and to speak out. So, yeah, I want to echo that same statement. It's okay to not be okay, guys, and it's okay to admit that you're not okay. Um,
Yeah.
today's quote is by Stephen Bartlett, and it's being selective about how you spend your time and who you spend your time with is a sign of self-respect. Um,
Yeah.
and with that quote comes the importance of boundaries. We as humans we're not taught about boundaries and who to keep boundaries from. If
Yeah.
something is overstimulating you, if something is overwhelming you, it's okay to take a step back and don't let anybody ever tell you that it's not okay to do so. Um, we are our own providers and we are our own support in desperate times. Sometimes, it's sometimes this journey is very lonely, but it doesn't always have to be lonely. You don't have to do this by yourself. Um, so make sure you reach out to the people are struggling, and it's okay to admit that you're struggling yourself. But
Yeah.
Ron, before we close out, I just want to say thank you so much for being on today's podcast and being open and vulnerable. I'm sure there are quite a few gentlemen that will appreciate your story and get something out of this conversation. So, Ron, thank you again, man.
Yeah, it was great to share the space with you, and I'm honored and flattered that you'd see that in me to help your guests.
Absolutely, man. And to all my listeners, thank you as always for your support. Until next time, be gentle with yourselves and much love.